Hello everyone, this is Darcinovia here, and this is my review on Vulcan's Glory, which is considered one of the best Star Trek novels ever written. Now, what makes Vulcan's Glory so good? Well, I'll talk about that later. First, I'm going to talk about the novel itself. It's written by someone that actually worked on the original series. The book also, is a Spock-centric novel, so if you're a Spock fan, you're likely going to want to pick this up. Also, this is, Spock's first assignment on the Enterprise. So, with very few stories featuring, Christopher Pike as even part of the main supporting cast, this is very rare. And this is one of the reasons I picked this up, because Christopher Pike, to me, is an interesting character who barely is featured in any stories. I know there's another Star Trek novel that was published 10 years ago called Burning Dreams, which I'll get to that one eventually, but I'm going to talk about this particular one. What makes this novel so good? What makes it stand out from a lot of the numbered novels? Well, this is one of those occasions where these novels, this particular one, feels like a Star Trek novel, and actually genuinely feels like someone who's written this novel actually understands the source material. Spock feels like Spock. He doesn't feel out of character, even though he shows more emotion than he normally does in the series. But again, this is Spock very early in his career in Starfleet. This also, dives more into Vulcan culture, which I think is interesting. Another thing, I like is it keeps, still keeps the Vulcans a mystery. And the glory itself, what is it exactly? Also, another thing I like is, there's a murder mystery at some point. Who is the murderer? Who is killing these people on the Enterprise? Who is it? Well, it's not someone you would expect unless you've been paying close attention. This story, I felt like, was really good. It really was. I think it felt like something that you would see in a classic Star Trek episode. This feels like you're reading a Star Trek episode, and that's not a bad thing, honestly. I think this novel is really good. If you're a fan of Spock, I think Spock is an interesting character. It's a short read, but I consider it a good Star Trek story, and something I recommend anyone to pick up. It's not that hard to find. You can get it on Kindle for a reasonable price. You could get the physical version for a reasonable price. I mean, this novel isn't hard to find. I could see now why it's considered one of the best Star Trek novels. Another thing I like about this novel is it didn't reveal too much about the character of Spock, at least on his, service on the Enterprise under Christopher Pike. I would really like to read more about, Spock, Pike, and everyone else on the Enterprise, but maybe Star Trek Discovery will open up those possibilities because, you know, Christopher Pike is in that series, and there's a novel coming out next year featuring him and Number One, who's now called Una, and Spock. I like to actually read more about this crew on the Enterprise before Kirk. So this is probably the closest thing you're going to get to that. This novel is something I highly recommend for Star Trek fans, and if you're a fan of Spock as in general, I think it's a good book. I give it a classic rating. Next time I review Star Trek novels, I don't know which one I'm going to finish first. I'm crazy. I'm reading two at once. The second book of the Legacy trilogy, Best Defense by David Mark, or this novel that's a sequel to possibly one of my favorite episodes of The Next Generation. May you all live long and prosper, and have a nice day, everyone. Later.